I'm Thom Mayne, a professor of architecture in the UCLA program, principal amorphosis. Been teaching for 41 years this year, and I would say practicing and teaching architecture simultaneous. They've always been completely interconnected in my life. I think one of the most interesting aspects of the Super Studio for me, as we really formed an idea of a new concept of a studio 8 years ago, had to do with restructuring education to look for new opportunities and expanded opportunities within the architectural profession, and that was key. And so I glued together a professional environment and the school, and there's no longer this distinction between being a student and the professional world. That I put that together, and I had people from my staff and consultants working with the studio. And so it was probably more parallel to a research studio in medicine or in biology or in engineering, that we now had a group of people working on a very defined problem, which had layers of experience. And then with that comes a notion of teamwork. And I think that became really evident early on, that as you looked at the work coming out of the studio, there was an immense, just an enormous output in these studios that had to do with us organizing 11 to 13 students that were working within a team framework, and that collaboration had huge synergy. I was given a grant by Richard Kashalik, who was then heading up Art Center. And he asked me if it was appropriate that I develop a studio at UCLA to look at urban provocations and to basically get people in Los Angeles interested in possibilities of provoking certain urban situations or looking at certain problems within the city. And we stopped and said, look, before we do the projects, let's kind of look at LA a bit and try to get our arms around it. And that was the LA Now, the first one. And then we divided into topics, and we said, look, we're architects, but it's a little too narrow just to look at architecture, and that's kind of been done before. And we divided it up, and we looked at people, economy, ecology. LA represents the 20th century city, and it's the international place, and it's the place of the future. It's the place always looking for the future and never is found. It's right, and it makes it a very a right place for experimentation, asking questions, but it always is asking, right? The problems that came out of that were very different than typical architectural problems, which were geography-based, etc. But they became more infrastructure. One connected to the airport, the transportation, one connected to the school system and the new Red Line. And that started us off on a trajectory of really rethinking how we even approach urban problems. And it started from a knowledge of a commitment to information and understanding the nature of the problem prior to entering that problem. I don't think there's any other program right now that's parallel to this. And of course, it's getting more interesting as it's now growing into a series of studios, this is what this is about, I guess. And that's a whole nother conversation. A year from now, 2 years from now, it's no longer a single studio. It's 3 studios, and there's going to have to be some interaction, some contamination between the studios. The role of UCLA is to question and challenge and expand and redefine and put within contemporary terms what architecture is or isn't and how it does service our world.